The U.S. launching an attack on Syria in a joint operation with British and French forces. ABC World News Tonight anchor David Muir is in Beirut with the latest. David.
Byron, good evening. As you can see, it is early morning here in the Middle East, here in Beirut. The sun has now come up, as it has over Syria, where they have realized now that there have indeed been U.S.-led airstrikes. It's something that they were expecting somewhat since earlier in the week. President Trump and his tweets signaling to the world that these missiles were in fact coming. It was shortly after 9 p.m. Eastern, President Trump addressing the American people, telling them these precision airstrikes had begun. They were aimed at chemical weapons capabilities, facilities across Syria, and that these U.S.-led airstrikes were being accomplished with help from our allies, the UK, and from France. In fact, it was French President Emmanuel Macron who first said late this week that he had no doubt chemical weapons were in fact used, at the very least chlorine, he said. The president, in addressing the American people, talked about the images seen not only back in the U.S., but obviously around the world. The women, the children in agony. We know more than 40 were killed in that suspected chemical attack. He talked about mothers and daughters gasping for air, and that these were the crimes of a monster in talking about President Bashar al-Assad. As for Assad tonight, he has issued a statement saying that good souls, good people will not be humiliated, in talking about the Syrian regime. Obviously, he's waking up to seeing capabilities, chemical weapons facilities, and their capabilities severely diminished. As we know, there are 2,000 U.S. troops that are working and operating inside Syria right now. It is believed they are completely safe. And one thing that the Defense Department, the Defense Secretary James Mattis, said repeatedly is that they tried to minimize any risk of civilian casualties, foreign casualties on the ground. No word on whether or not anyone was hurt, killed, or injured in any of these precision airstrikes. For now, I'm David Muir in Beirut. Byron, back to you.
Thank you, David. It was just a short while ago that President Trump addressed the nation, outlining the reasons for tonight's airstrikes and casting blame on Russia and Iran.
My fellow Americans, a short time ago, I ordered the United States Armed Forces to launch precision strikes on targets associated with the chemical weapons capabilities of Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad.
Tonight, President Trump announcing the U.S., along with France and the United Kingdom, have launched a coordinated strike against Syria.
The purpose of our actions tonight is to establish a strong deterrent against the production, spread, and use of chemical weapons.
Defense Secretary James Mattis describing the military action as limited for now.
This is a one-time shot, and I believe that it sent a very strong message to dissuade him, to deter him from doing this again.
The strike comes a week after a reported chemical attack in the town of Doma, just outside the capital city of Damascus.
The evil and the despicable attack left mothers and fathers, infants and children thrashing in pain and gasping for air.
The president condemning not only the Syrian dictator, but the two countries who primarily support his regime.
To Iran and to Russia, I ask, what kind of a nation wants to be associated with the mass murder of innocent men, women, and children?
Pressing Russia to give up its support of Assad.
Russia must decide if it will continue down this dark path or if it will join with civilized nations as a force for stability and peace. Hopefully, someday we'll get along with Russia and maybe even Iran, but maybe not.
Late tonight, the Russian embassy in the U.S. issuing a statement saying, "Our warnings have been left unheard. A pre-designed scenario is being implemented. We warn that such actions will not be left without consequences." ABC's chief global affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz is in Washington tonight with more on the attack. Martha.
Byron, the missile strikes struck only 3 targets. Chemical weapons infrastructure. The first target, a scientific research center, a center for research, development, production, and testing of biological and chemical warfare technology. The second, a chemical weapons storage facility west of Homs, the primary location of Syrian sarin. And the third contained chemical weapons storage facilities and an important, they say, command post. The Pentagon also said that the strikes would be sustained, but by that they do not mean continuous. They mean if Assad uses chemical weapons again, they will hit him again. Secretary Mattis says this is a one-time shot. This is over. We do not expect any more strikes again unless Assad uses chemical weapons again. They only used about 120 cruise missiles in this strike. That's double the number from last year. But remember, those 59 Tomahawk missiles hit an airfield, and that airfield was up and running within days. But this was a very quick strike, a very coordinated strike with the French and British and U.S. The Russians were not given a target list. They were last year. They were warned what would be hit, but there was some deconfliction going on. The U.S. did communicate with the Russians what airspace they would be using, so they did have a hint. Byron.
I want to bring in now ABC News contributor, retired Marine Colonel Steve Ganyard in D.C. So, Steve, last year we saw a single attack on an airfield. This time we're learning there were multiple targets. Can you tell us what specifically was hit and what was the scope of this attack?
Byron, the targets were similar. So they were all chemical weapons, either facilities, production facilities, places where they stored chemical weapons. So although the target set was very much like last year in hitting these facilities, there were a greater number of facilities hit this time across all of Syria.
And what can you tell us about the coalition forces in the region?
Well, this was a true combined operation. We had U.S., French, and British aircraft, and perhaps U.S. and French ships at sea, all launching these cruise missiles to hit the various targets around Syria that all three countries had agreed on. Now,
will this attack, you think, deter chemical weapon attacks on the Syrian people again by Assad?
This was more of a punch in the arm than a punch in the nose, Byron. I think another way to look at this is maybe this is the same message President Trump sent last year, just shouted louder. It's not a new message. It really didn't hurt Assad himself. It's just a stronger warning not to use chemical weapons. Whether that's effective, can only wait and see.
Steve Ganyard in Washington. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thanks, Byron.
Now let's bring in ABC News senior White House correspondent Cecilia Vega outside the White House. Cecilia, throughout the week, the president said he was weighing his options before his final decision tonight. Criticized by some for telegraphing his plan, who was the president consulting with, and how did he come to tonight's decision to attack these targets?
He started his week with the top generals in the country here behind closed doors at the White House. This is not an easy decision for this president. The White House aides have told us that he was moved on a deeply personal level by seeing those images of those children in Syria. You know, he's a grandfather, remember that, and he had said the first time around when he authorized these attacks a year ago that is what moved him. There are reports, though, that he didn't necessarily get all the plans for that attack in Syria laid out the way that he wanted. He wanted a tough, hard punishment for Syria, and that wasn't in the initial round of punishments of the attack that he received from his generals. So he pushed them harder, not just to punish Syria, but to punish Russia. Ultimately, Byron, it looks like the plan that he got is one that he is happy with.
Cecilia, this was a military strike, but let's talk about the politics, the optics of this evening with all that's going on for this White House.
This day started hours ago with the president tweeting at his former FBI director, James Comey, launching that attack, calling him a leaker and a liar, saying that he should be prosecuted. Let's not forget, aside from all of that, his own attorney's office, his private attorney's office, home and office has been raided in recent days. He's got a lot going on that led up to this decision in Syria, and I think a lot of people are wondering whether he was able to fully concentrate on making this decision in Syria with everything going on around him.
A full play at the White House for sure. Cecilia Vega, thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.